Today, we're going to torture this little diesel engine with yet another unusual experiment. You know, this poor engine has suffered quite a bit over the past year or so, and hopefully today's test doesn't destroy this low-cost diesel engine. And that's because we still have big plans for this engine. Anyway, this time around, we're going to feed the diesel engine a mixture of hydrogen and oxygen that we're going to generate with this complex-looking apparatus. So, the hydrogen and oxygen mixture that we're going to be feeding this engine is commonly known these days as HHO, and a lot of the old-timers refer to it as Brown's gas. No matter what you call it, the mixture of hydrogen and oxygen is extremely explosive, and this will be an interesting experiment. So this HHO generator is a fascinating piece of equipment. You see, it takes regular water that's slightly diluted with a chemical like sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide. When you pump electricity into the system, the water will break down into its natural components through a process called electrolysis. And we get an explosive gas that contains 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. Now, who would have thought that water could be explosive? Well, as it turns out, when you separate the atoms that make up water, it's hella explosive. Now, the energy it takes to split water into hydrogen and oxygen is quite a bit, and in theory, if you're being honest, the HHO gas that's being generated with the power from the engine that's also consuming the gas, well, any benefit such as extra horsepower is offset by the power it takes to generate the gas. Or, in other words, there's no such thing as free energy. Now, what I'm interested in is if this hydrogen and oxygen gas will destroy the diesel engine, and if by some chance it doesn't hurt the engine, well, will we see any benefits such as an increased RPM or lower exhaust gas temperatures? Or will the engine sound different? Basically, I'm interested in what effects the highly explosive gas has on the engine. Maybe it'll get this stinky and noisy engine to sound better. I really don't know what to expect. Don't worry, we will do a fuel consumption test with and without the gas, just in case there's some magic going on that I'm not aware of. Alright, let's get started. So this engine received a lot of abuse last summer when we did many questionable alternative fuel experiments. Basically, we fed this little diesel engine garbage for fuel, and it actually managed to survive, but just barely. At the conclusion of the test, well, the little engine was down on power and the exhaust gas temperatures were about 400 degrees hotter than normal. Now, higher than normal exhaust gas temperatures on a diesel engine is a sign something's gone wrong with the fuel injection system. It may very well be possible all the garbage we ran through this engine damaged the injector pump or the injector itself. Let's fire up the engine and verify it's still having problems. And if it is, well, I reckon we need to fix the engine before we try to destroy it again. Now, if you're not familiar with our test bench, this is what's going on. We have a 3 horsepower, 196cc low-cost diesel engine, and over here, we have a 120 amp alternator, and that's connected to the engine via pulleys and a belt system. The output of the alternator feeds into this resistive load bank, and we can control the loads we put on the engine with this switch box. Now, with the box, we can turn on and off the alternator and switch on the individual loads. This load bank can absorb 1300 watts of power, which is quite a bit of a load for this little engine. The engine has 2 temperature sensors. One sensor's on the exhaust to measure the exhaust gas temperatures, and one's on the intake port. We also have a tachometer on the engine to keep track of the RPM. The voltage and the current that the alternator makes is also monitored. This is a simple test bench, and it should provide some interesting data. Alright, let's fire the engine up and see if it's still having problems. I'll let the engine warm up for a while off camera. So if we look at the available gauges, well, this is the engine RPM, this is the voltage the alternator is making, and this is the load on the engine, and we're showing about 52 amps. Over here is the exhaust gas temperature, and unfortunately it's trending upward, and that's not good. Normally this engine runs between 500 and 600 degrees Fahrenheit with a heavy load. This is the intake manifold temperature, and finally this is the ambient temperature. As you can see, it's fairly warm today. Not too shabby for the first week of February. You gotta love Kansas. One day it's hot and the next day it's cold. Now when I switch on an additional load, you can see the amps go up and so does the exhaust gas temperature. Well, it looks like the engine is still having problems. Fast forward a bit, and I've been fooling around off camera. I discovered that removing the fuel line nipple on the injector exposes an adjustment screw for the injector pop pressure. In theory, turning this screw clockwise increases the pop pressure, and that'll retard the injector/ignition timing. Turning the screw counterclockwise, well, that'll lower the pop pressure, and that advances the timing. So on this low-cost diesel engine, there's a bit of wiggle room for adjusting the timing. It's all very interesting, but that's not what's causing our problem. It turns out all the garbage fuel we ran through the engine had caused a massive amount of carbon to build up on this injector heat shield. You see, the buildup of carbon had reduced the size of this hole to a point where it was dramatically upsetting the spray pattern, and the fuel just wasn't atomizing properly. Now, unfortunately, I've already cleaned up the huge mountain of carbon that had built up on this heat shield. Actually, I've already tested the engine, and this was the problem. At this point, the engine runs perfect. So I did fool around with this adjustment screw, and I ended up turning the screw slightly clockwise from the factory position. Now, in theory, this increased the pop pressure and retarded the timing slightly. Now, that drastically reduced the smoke and the stink of this engine when it was running at full load, and I got the exhaust gas temperatures to drop way below what I normally expect to see. Now, in theory, I reckon this adjustment may have reduced the power output slightly, but overall, the engine runs so much better. Actually, it runs way better than new. Now, we did order a new injector pump and a new fuel injector through Allied Express for $45, and that includes shipping. And amazingly, the parts actually showed up, but we won't be needing these today. So running the engine on homemade fuels certainly works, there's no question about that, but it would appear that some fuels are better than others, and I would definitely recommend on one of these low-cost engines to pull the injector and check the heat shield for carbon buildup periodically if the main fuel source is not conventional diesel. Now that the engine's back to tip-top shape, let's deal with this contraption. This equipment is actually on loan to the channel by one of my subscribers, Roy. Actually, another subscriber, Kyle, reached out originally and asked if I could do an HHO experiment, and he got Roy to step in and provide this massive system. This is actually a 3-cell system, and we're only using 1 cell. Now, from what I understand, these cells were designed by a group called the Energy Builders Network, and they're extremely high quality. Now, I'm not sure if EBN is still around, but it looks like the cells will last forever. Anyway, I know nothing about this stuff other than theory, so let's see if we can make it work. For this experiment, we'll be using potassium hydroxide. Now, Roy recommended that we start off with 10 grams of KOH per US gallon. Well, spoiler alert, that's actually way too much potassium hydroxide. You see, the potassium hydroxide is added to the water to help improve the conductivity of the water, and at 10 grams per US gallon, the single HHO cell was drawing over 40 amps, which is not really a problem, but I didn't wire the system for more than 30 amps, and I kept blowing fuses once the system warmed up. Anyway, after diluting the mixture, I got the current down to 20 amps, and as the system got warmer, the current did go up to nearly 25 amps. Fast forward many hours, and I finally sorted out all the issues. Now, today it's raining ice, and as you can see, we have some ice buildup on the mirror of the Honda. Wonderful. The little diesel engine's been running non-stop for over 3 hours, and we're finally ready to do some testing. It took some time to figure out what height all the components needed to be. Now, Roy had mentioned that the HHO cell needed to be the lowest part of the system, and what I have now works perfect. Now, this tube coming out of the reservoir is where the hydrogen and oxygen gas exit this apparatus. Right now, I just have a short tube on it, but eventually we'll connect this to the intake manifold on the engine. Let's turn the system on and see what happens. So, once I flip this switch, we should hear the little diesel engine struggle as it provides power for the HHO reaction cell. Right away, we can see the electricity that we're feeding into this system is splitting the water molecules into 2 hydrogen atoms and 1 oxygen atom. It's amazing how all this stuff works. Okay, right now we're not feeding the engine any of the HHO gas, and the engine's just running on pure diesel. So just to be clear, the HHO apparatus is generating the gas, but we're just venting it into the atmosphere. We need to keep this gizmo active even though we're not using any of the gas it generates, and this is so we can account for the load that it puts on the engine. Over on the gauges, we can see that the engine's running at about 2500 RPM and we have a load of 43 amps. Now, 23 amps is being consumed by the HHO generator, and we have an additional 20 amps from the resistor load bank, and that gives us a total of 43 amps. Alright, let me pause the video for a moment. So my brother Duke was confused why I ran two loads on the engine. One load was the HHO cell at 23 amps, and the other load was the resistive load from the load bank for a total of around 43 amps. So I guess that's a good question. Well, the 23 amps that the HHO cell is consuming to generate the hydrogen and oxygen gas is a mandatory load. During all the tests, the load is present whether the engine's consuming the HHO gas or not. You know, we have to factor in this load in order to remain consistent. Now, I switched in another 20 amp load, so the engine was doing some actual work during these tests. You see, if we're going to test a fuel of any type, we need to test the fuel while the engine's doing some sort of productive work. In this case, we had the engine generate an extra 20 amps of power to simulate some real work. So the total load of around 43 to 45 amps is to remain consistent throughout all the tests in order to evaluate the effects of the fuel being tested. Now, hopefully that makes sense for my brother Duke and anyone else who may be confused. Alright, let's continue the video. So what we're doing right now is collecting baseline data and we're observing how the engine runs with a medium load. Meh, this is the boring part of doing tests, and on a cold, wet day like today, this is the last thing I want to do, but it has to be done. So the exhaust gas temperature is stable, but it's climbing very slowly. This is completely normal. Now, the current is creeping up just a little bit, and that's most likely due to the water in the HHO system getting warmer. Now, Roy had told me that the water actually conducts better when it gets warmer, so this is completely normal. Now, other than the slight increase of the exhaust gas temperature and the slight increase of the current, nothing else is happening. Alright, let's do this again, but this time we're going to feed the engine some exotic fuel from the HHO contraption. Well, it's not complaining, and it sounds pretty much the same. Let's verify that the HHO thingy is working. And it sure is. Alright, let's keep an eye on the gauges. Now we're seeing a bit more current on the meter, and that means the water is more conductive, and it's not a result of the gas being fed into the engine, so this is completely normal. The exhaust gas temperatures are still creeping up, but that's likely normal as well. The RPMs are still hovering around 2500, which is normal. Now in the past, when we introduced something like propane into the fuel system, we actually saw a bump in RPM and a decrease in exhaust gas temperatures. But right now, we're not seeing any difference in the way this engine runs with or without the HHO fuel. Now, I would have thought that we would have seen at least something on the exhaust gas temperatures, but nope, we ain't got nothing. Very interesting. Now for both of the tests, I sped up the video. In actuality, both tests took about 15 minutes, and that's plenty of time to observe the vital functions of the engine. And unfortunately, we didn't see any positive or negative effects from the HHO gas. Let's do a fuel consumption test and see what effects the hydrogen and oxygen gas have. Perhaps we're just not looking in the right places yet. So for this test, we're comparing how much fuel the engine consumes with the HHO and without the HHO. The load on the engine is consistent and the HHO generator was active during these tests. However, we vented the HHO gas into the atmosphere during the portion where the engine ran without the HHO. And this is interesting. The HHO beaker is showing slightly less fuel consumption after almost 14 minutes of runtime. This is the first indication of a difference between HHO and no HHO. So I focused the rest of the afternoon on running multiple fuel consumption tests. And it turns out in every test other than the first one, the fuel consumption was exactly the same. I'm not sure what happened in the first test, but it's really looking like the HHO has no effect on the diesel engine. Now, obviously, introducing an explosive gas into the engine should have some effect, either positive or negative, but we're not showing anything. Now, we did check the entire apparatus for leaks, and it built pressure when the output was plugged, so we can rule out any possibility of leaks. The only thing I can think of is we didn't introduce enough HHO gas to see an effect on the engine. So here's something to consider. In order to produce the hydrogen and oxygen gas, the HHO cell was consuming a little bit less than 1/4 of the power the engine can develop. In other words, nearly 20% of the engine's power was being consumed to generate the HHO gas. Now that's quite a bit of power, and that makes sense because it takes energy to split water into separate hydrogen and oxygen atoms. It would be nice if it didn't, but that's not how it works in the real world. Now I really want to see what effects the HHO has on the engine, and as I mentioned earlier, I want to see if it changes the way the engine runs, how it sounds, and if it has an effect on the exhaust gas temperatures. Well, unfortunately, that's a test for another day. I reckon if there's enough interest, we'll try this test again, and next time we'll try doubling the output of the HHO system. Now, I don't buy into the hocus pocus of HHO being a magical solution for fuel savings, but I'm sure a lot of folks do, and that's fine. If you think I made a mistake in my testing, feel free to explain what I did wrong. Ultimately, I want to see something I can measure, and at this point, I got nothing. Perhaps diesel engines react differently to this sort of thing? I don't know. Anyway, as always, I had fun today, and I hope you did as well. If you enjoyed today's video, click on the like button. It really helps the channel out, and this channel needs all the help it can get. Of course, subscribe if you haven't done so already. Now, next week, we'll continue working on the petroleum battery-powered electric golf cart. And that project's all about getting an electric golf cart back on the road without using any batteries. Nope, we don't need no stinking batteries. Instead, we'll just make our own electricity, and that's the fun part. We'll see you next time. Until then.